The Reformed Gamers is brought to you 100% independent and ad-free thanks to our dear patrons over on patreon.com/reformedgamers to get yourself sweet, sweet perks such as uncut early access to the episodes, special episodes of the podcast, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/reformedgamers and consider lending support and joining the herd. Without further ado, let's hop into the show.
Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to episode 186 of the Reformed Gamers. I am your usually co-host, Adam, and joining me today is the one and only, the dear editor himself, David Skinner II. David, thank you for joining us, good sir.
Hi, guys. It is Skinner in here with you. I am the dear editor supreme. Not so supreme because it's early in the morning, but coffee's getting in me, so we'll be good.
We got the coffee going. It was a busy week this week. Let you a little bit in on how this week is gone. We were trying to find times, but again, with what we're talking about today, gaming and parenting, life gets busy. Kids keep you going. Couldn't find a weeknight, so we're doing this on an early Saturday morning. My wife was like, "Really, a Saturday morning?" I said, "It was a busy week." I'm like, "Look at the schedule. What night of the week did you want us to be able to do this?" Because again, thankful for a busy schedule in the midst of, a season when a lot of people aren't able to leave their house, but just with its ministry or, hospitality ministry here at the house, just a lot of different things. So definitely thankful for Skinner's flexibility. I'm like, hey, here are some options. Let's figure it out. So he could jump on and join us. And just a little housekeeping before we get into the show. As you can tell, Skinner is not Logan. And so very different takes. We're going to have some very sane, logical, really well takes, not any of the flippy flops that Logan loves to bring us. No, I'm kidding. But Logan is taking a week off of the podcast, really a couple weeks. He just needed to step away for a bit, take some time to rest. Logan puts in a lot of hard work. And really pours in a lot to this podcast and to our social media and to his YouTube and Twitch and all the things.
Indeed.
So he's taken about a month off just of content related material. So as best as he can, he can't completely step away, but he's doing his best. And so glad to have Skinner. I think the thought is potentially for Logan to rejoin us for our next episode. But again, we'll just kind of see how the things play out over the next couple of weeks. But glad that Skinner could jump on to share some of his knowledge. We do have some new content for you guys to be checking out. If you didn't see on our YouTube, Micah and myself at the last State of Play, we did a watch along. We're not quite as cool as all the other kids where we can do that live, but we recorded it and we recorded ourselves discussing it. And then we edit it and put it on the internet. So if you want to rewatch, or if for some reason you are behind in the world, maybe you've been out of the country where there's no internet and you're just coming back to the States, or you've got internet again and you're like, oh, there was a State of Play and you want to watch it, maybe watch it with us over on our YouTube where we have TRG Reacts on the State of Play. We gave our opinions and stuff. And if you want to hear our post-show really analysis of that, you can support us over on Patreon at the Reformed Gamers, and that's where we kind of did our exclusive analysis of the show. So you can find that material over there on Patreon and on our YouTube. Mike has also been posting articles left and right as our kind of resident reporter. He has a new article up recently on the Nintendo Switch Pro, or whatever it's going to be, a potential new Nintendo Switch. He's got an article up there. He's got an article on Pokemon Diamond and Shining Pearl in the new game. I don't know if they call it Arceus or Arceus, the new Pokemon Legends game coming out. And so, again, he's got an article over on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, all these different things, just piping out a lot of good material over on the website. So you guys can go check out that material. Just, again, to supplement, you can catch us on the podcast. You can check us on the website. If you're not a part of the Facebook group, jumping over there, always good conversations happening. But enough of that housekeeping. Let's jump into the show and start how we always do, with a little bit of what you have been playing. So, Skinner, why don't you kick us off with some of your games that you've been jumping into recently?
I'm kind of excited about this because this week I wrapped up the last of the DLC on was it 2018 Spider-Man?
Nice.
And that game was just amazing. Frustrating at times. Those dang challenges from Taskmaster and Screwball were just annoying. But I got good. And
after hours and hours of laboring.
Yes. Well, I figured out a handy trick. I do have an iPad, and the Remote Play app on the PS4 allowed me to hook my controller up to the
Yep.
iPad so I could actually play while on the exercise bike.
There you go.
And get a little exercise in. So I'm hoping to do that more.
Life hack, baby.
Soon.
Life hack.
Right?
You
right.
got it all.
Game changer for me. Like,
you're like, babe, I'm working out. She's like, no, you're not. You're playing video games. But I'm on the bike. I'm walking over here or something.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm giving you my best me over here. And I'm multitasking. Again, this is the wisdom you married over here.
That's it. So started doing that. That's going to be hopefully lead to a lot of good stuff. And then it wasn't that long ago that I finished up God of War.
Dad of Boy.
Yes, Dad of Boy. But I'm super excited about what's coming. Because see, I have a backlog of PS4 exclusives.
Man,
we got
a great backlog.
Horizon Zero Dawn, Last of Us, Kingdom Hearts 3, Persona 5, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, which I just got for free.
Let's go.
Freedom. So I mean, there's Arkham Knight, Telltale Batman. I've got a slew of good games, and I've been platinuming them, which has been making Logan quite happy, pleased with me.
I would say you're a better man than me, but I don't know if you're a better or crazier man than me, because you got a backlog, man. I mean, I appreciate that you want to get the most out of these things, but man, you're gonna be a while to get through this backlog when you platinum them all.
Well, the thing is that, like, how long did I sit on the PS3?
Sure.
And I was still just like plugging away at it. Why? Because I'm cheap.
And honestly, now the gap there are definitely conveniences and, different perks of the new systems, no doubt. But again, your graphics they're not crazy different yet. It's mainly just quality of life of, it loads faster, it's this or that. But
right.
I mean, again, all those games you mentioned, they all look great. They play great. They're, certified bangers, just great games. Mm-hmm. So there's no rush to get, especially right now with the PS5. I mean, well, not even the PS5 and Xbox Series X. It's just 2021 coming out of 2020, where this is like, I can't think of a season for this long where it's been really backlog, beat down like season. Because we've had a couple games. We just got, Persona Strikers came out. I'm trying to think. There's been a couple other games that have, nothing crazy big, but you've had a couple games come out here recently, and we've got a couple coming up. But it's not like most years where it feels like you're just constantly getting hit with big game. Everything's kind of being pushed till maybe the end of 2021. So even for myself, I'm looking at my games and saying, okay, now's when I really need to be taking advantage of Game Pass. Now's when I need to be, cleaning up some of these PS4 games that I never got to.
Right.
And so it really is probably some of the best backlog time that I can remember in a very long time. So, I mean, you're sitting in a nice situation where probably a lot of people are with your backlog.
Yeah. So other people have been, playing these games when they came out. I'm just 2 or 3 years behind. Like, I think there was an XKCD that was a little comic that was talking about it. I just wait for 5 years, and that way I've always got something good and new to play.
Hey, it's that delayed gratification. I think the Bible talks something about that. We usually, when it's instant gratification on some things, it's not always for our betterment or for our health. And so the way that God teaches us patience through delayed gratification is really an amazing thing. So you're getting to live a lot of that out. And your pockets are gonna be a little bit more full with some good stewardship. But yeah,
what about you?
Huh?
I was just saying, well, what about you? Like, what you've been playing, man?
Whew, yeah, I can jump right into it. It's been a really weird kind of season, because of just the backlogs and everything. And really the biggest detriment to my gaming is Hannah and I have been rewatching The Walking Dead, which again, it is what it is. The beginning of the show was great. Towards the end's kind of been, different or whatever. Not as maybe as good, but so we've been usually in the evenings, we may be watching a show, but eventually we're like, okay, she'll play her phone game and I'll jump on and play something for a little bit. But because we've got into this, we've really been like binging it more at night, and like I'm like falling asleep to it. So I kind of look back, I'm like, man, I am not gaming as much as I would like to, because we've been, again, usually you have time for one of these, maybe two of these little hobbies. And so by the time we put the kids to bed and we kind of do some sort of Devo type thing together, it's like, okay, I'm pretty tired. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna watch something, or am I gonna play some video games? And so been a lot more watching than playing, but that's not to say I haven't been playing. So I think in the last episode I talked just some high praise on Ori in general, but Blind Forest, and then specifically the Will of the Wisps. And so I finished that game. Those. Oh, they're so good. I made a pretty bold statement last episode about how I think it's Microsoft's kind of best IP / kind of exclusive. I mean, they're on Nintendo now, but when you think between them and PlayStation, I just think those games are excellent. They look amazing. They play really well. The story is good, and it's been cool. We were watching Brave, the Pixar movie, and there's all these wisps. They're talking about the wisp, and I'm like, oh shoot. Like, it just kind of, because I don't know.
I know what those are.
Exactly. I've watched that movie multiple times, but I never think anything about it. And then it's like my hobbies are like my entertainment's cross pollinating, and I'm like, oh shoot, these wisps are going to lead me to this tree, and I'm going to have to fight a bad guy. So that was kind of fun seeing just that little moment of like, oh, okay. So I finished that game, really, really enjoyed it. Been jumping into a couple other games. I've been playing a little bit more Hades. That's a game I need to just play more of. I'm really enjoying it. Roguelikes are still a challenge for me. Like, again, it hasn't been bad replaying some of the stuff, but I'm always wondering, how long am I going to do this? Because my problem is I don't play it consistently. I'll play it one night for maybe an hour, and then it's sitting for 3 or 4 days, and I'll pick it up. So I'm not really getting good yet, but I've been able to beat the first. And again, I don't really know the layout of the game, so I beat kind of one of the first. I'm trying to think what they call it, Furies or what do they call it? Well, basically the boss. I beat one of the first bosses, and I haven't got to the second one yet. So I'm just trying to figure out, okay, I need to stick with it because everybody loves it. And again, I enjoy the games. I love. I can't think. My mind's blanking on the developer right now, but I love their games. Bastion, Transistor. I haven't played Pyre, but this is right in those veins. Really love these games. It's just a matter of how long do I stick with it, because there's, again, Pokemon Snap's coming up soon. It's not too far away, and there's always something vying for our time.
Oh man, I'm glad I don't have a Switch, because then I'd really be just out of luck. I mean, because Pokemon Snap, I can think back to my fun times on the N64 playing. In fact, we have 2 copies of Pokemon Snap.
Nice.
In the house
just
right
in case
now.
You had to be ready in case one goes out.
One was mine, one was my wife's.
There you go.
So
there you go. And then the last game I started, I've only played maybe a little over an hour. I jumped into Demon Souls, and I can barely play. I'm like nervous. I was telling our kids pastor this week, I'm just nervous the whole time I play it. Like, it doesn't matter if you die. You're going to die a ton of times, but I'm just always waiting for something to jump out at me. And so I'm going, and I'm like super, and I'm cheesing it. I'm doing the royalty class. So I'm zapping everybody with this magic. Kind of wearing them down before I go in to finish them off with my sword or whatever. But it looks great. I'm excited to play it more. My wife's going away, so I'm kind of establishing a week coming up. So my wife, I'm going to meet her parents in Buffalo, New York. I'm going to give her the kids and my wife. They're going to go to Michigan. I'm going to come home, and I'm going to have like a week to 10 days where they're going to be in Michigan. I'm going to miss them. It's going to be super sad. By the time they come back, I'm going to be in tears, sitting in sackcloth and ashes, waiting for them to come back.
Right. Yes.
But while they're gone,
Good
will
steward of
take
your time.
advantage.
You need
I
to
will
be
be
a good steward of your
exactly
time.
right, Mr. Skinner. I will be taking good stewardship principles and sitting on my butt and playing a whole lot of video games. So I'm like carving out what game or games, because I mean, I'm
Ooh.
gonna have some game nights. I'm gonna have some guys over. We're gonna play some board games. We're gonna play some video games. But I already know I'm going to. There's gonna be some nights where I come home at 5:30. I'm gonna eat something real quick, and I'm gonna play from 6 o'clock till 1 a.m. And I'll have like probably some sports on the background on my iPad. But I am gonna be taking advantage of the opportunity. And so, Demon Souls, I think, is gonna be one of those games that I really focus on. I might even get
Oh,
some
not
like
Call of Duty?
Yeah, probably not. Probably. I mean, I could. I mean, I love me some. Honestly, I should be taking advantage of multiplayer games because it will be the most open my schedule will be ever since I've been married. So I probably should be playing multiplayer games. So that's what I'm saying. I might get Logan, maybe Mike to jump on Demon Souls with me and co-op it with me. I've been talking about maybe, it's right after the new Avengers update comes on the PS5, even though they just come out with super bogus news about that game, which I'm not excited about in regards to the grind. So I plan on playing that also, and I might do some of that multiplayer with a couple people. I mean, again, I'm trying to. Okay, I need 2-3 games at most. What am I going to focus on over that week to 10 days? And I'm going to go hard, like because I mean, it's what the topic we're talking about. Just with where we're at with life, I have to.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a lot of responsibilities, especially with the kids and trying to be a good husband. So haven't been getting to play maybe as much as I would normally like. But again, it's all okay. I'm not even worried about it. But that's enough about what we've been playing, because we could talk about what we're going to play. That's really what that was turning into me. What am I going to play? Yeah. I don't need to talk about what I need to. We can focus on that later. But let's focus on and shift to what have you been reading, Skinner? What's a thing or two you've been reading, either from the Word or from a book, that you'd want to share with us?
All right. Well, started doing this annually. I can't remember the church right offhand. If I yelled for my wife, she could tell me. But they do basically a keep the feast reading plan every year. So basically you read the whole Bible in 9 months. And so this is my second go round on it. So this will be my 5th read through of the scriptures word for word. Which that's not a brag. That's I should be at like 20 or 30 by this point in my life. But it's really good doing it daily and just going through the entirety of the Bible, not just Bible dipping or, just have, I mean, individual devotionals for a time, they're good,
Yeah.
But if that's all you ever do, if all you ever read of the Bible is just a single, one or two lines of scripture and then somebody else is talking about it, you're not filling yourself with the word, I guess. So really been doing that, and that was not to Jesus juke anyone. I know the JJ.
Place. That's why I do. Honestly, I do commentaries when I'm reading. They're usually I can do a little bit larger chunk of text, but it just. I mean, I like to have some of that illustration. But like you're exactly right. Sometimes I don't remember who it was. Multiple people probably said it. Sometimes we get caught up reading more people talk about the Bible than the Bible itself.
Exactly,
which is not ideal for sure.
Right. And on the completely opposite side of the spectrum, my wife and I have been going through Ready Player 2, which the wokeism is strong with this one, but it's still a fun story. It's still, it's a rehashing of the first book, and you know what? I don't care. I love it. It doesn't matter. You take the good with the bad. I mean, so, because nothing that comes from the world is going to be pure. So you have to go into that understanding that, and then take what good you can. And like one of the things what will happen is we'll get to a section and we'll start talking about the fact how like you look at the worldview that he's espousing and you're like, that's crazy. But then at the same time, he recognizes the good of the Christian worldview without actually admitting to it. Like the best character or the most, I don't want to say holy, but the character that had the least amount of flaws in that book was that old Christian woman who died in the stacks in the first book. Like, because she literally cared about him. She just took care. Like, she was living out the Christian life, caring for this kid, and he had no way to explain it other than to maybe try to dog on it some. But anyway, that we did a whole episode on that. I got a couple of other books that we're doing a thing on the Sermon on the Mount with the men's group. Sinclair Ferguson did a deal on that. And then my wife loves to read books. There's another one called Getting Games that we had started reading. And if I sound weird, it's because I was looking on the shelf to see the, the title of it. So, yeah, actually, I was reading a lot more than I thought I was, just all of it off and on and at different times. So, but yeah, that's what I got. What you got, man?
Yeah, kind of similar to what you were just saying. I'm not normally the guy that has a stack of books, mainly because I read a lot on my Kindle. But in my office, I've established a stack, which is, it's fun to look at and think,
like a real pastor, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I'm becoming a real pastor. Slowly but surely, I'm getting there.
That was a joke.
Many bound books on my shelf and on my desk to make it look like I'm sure there'd be a lot more commentaries if I was preaching more often. But again, most of my commentaries are digital, which I'm totally down with because I've got access to them anywhere. But a couple books, really, I'm not going to go deep on really any of the things that I'm reading and do a ton of quotes. But in regards to my quiet time, I'm really all over the place. I'm leading a Bible study on the book of Mark at a local homeless mission. So, doing some different study on that. Reading, it's actually, I'll talk about here in a second. There's a company called the Daily Grace Co. or Daily Grace Company. It's really, again, anybody can get good stuff out of their material, but it's really, I think, attractive to a lot of women. That's a lot of really artsy stuff. And so my wife ordered a bunch of these devotionals, but they all came with digital copies. So I'm like, I'm not going to waste these. So I downloaded the app and redeemed all the codes for the Devo. So I've been doing a few of those, and it's kind of been a walk through the Bible, which has been really good. Some of what you were talking about, some larger groups of texts in the Old Testament, and it's called like Amen from Eden to Eternity. So it's kind of a look through of the overview of the Bible. And so that's been really good. I tell people I've been doing a women's Bible study, but it is what it is. It's the Bible, and I can, that is genderless. So it's been good. Kind of walking through that, reading a couple books not for work, just because, somewhat for work to help equip me, but reading it's called Mac and Leanne's Guide to Short-Term Missions, as a missions pastor, just, I've gone on trips. I've led some trips to some degree, but not necessarily a church-wide short-term trip. We had one planned and then COVID hit. So just trying to continue to equip myself better to lead on those type of trips as I grow in my role. So I've been reading through that, reading through R.C. Sproul's St. Andrew's commentary on Acts, kind of slow rolling that. That's just usually some complimentary reading when I've got the time. His St. Andrew's, again, I think Logan bought a few of them last time they were on sale. Those commentaries, they're one of my favorites. His St. Andrew's, I wish he did the whole Bible, but he's only got like 6 or 7 books. So I love his commentaries to go along with Christ-centered exposition, or another commentary that I love. And then another book I've been reading is called Replanted. It's faith-based support for adoptive and foster families. So our pastors, we read through a book kind of together at a time. And so at the beginning of our staff meeting, we will discuss, a chapter at a time. And so it was my turn to choose. And so I was okay to go on to pick a missions book, or I did an orphan care book. And I was sharing some with you before the show, like our church is really growing in the area of orphan care. And so foster adoption, all the things that go with that support. So this book, I'm really excited because I think it's a great book for us because it really talks about how churches can be a support system to foster and adoptive families. And so, like again, we love Adopted for Life. That talks a lot about the theology, the why of adoption, and kind of fleshes out. This is much more. Seems like it's a great book for church leadership. I haven't finished it, but that's what
Okay.
we're kind of getting at. So I'm really excited about because I think it's going to equip us as a leadership team to serve our people and to serve our community. So I'm really excited just to see the growth because, I mean, we're helping our people see that. I mean, you can speak to this better than I can. Fostering adoption is messy. It's hard. It's challenging. You're stepping into like we're doing paperwork. And it's one thing to theoretically be talking about becoming a foster parent, but once we start to filling out that paperwork, we're like, okay, are we ready for this?
It
Like,
gets real.
are we really? And then once we get the paperwork done and we get done with all the classes and the PowerPoints, we're gonna be like, are we really ready for this? Are we about to say yes? But again, that's the enemy. That's fear. Again, not that you don't want to be wise. If we're not at the stage where, we could do more damage than good if we're not careful. But I think a lot of that's just fear. It's comfort. We want to stay where we're at and control what we think we can control. But it's really challenging us. So I'm really thankful that our church is taking this stuff serious. We've got a great support system, even though we're not near family. We've got a great support system here at our church. So I'm really excited to see how God stretches us in that. But
that's awesome.
The book I wanted to talk about. So what have I been reading? So this whole discipleship of our daughter thing, really, our team leadership at our church, we really try as a part of our accountability to talk about the idea of family worship. What are we doing to help our children grow and our families and lead them? And so really just continue to learning how to do that with Rin as our 3-year-old. And so we're learning. She's, again, crazy smart. She's memorized a book about taking a bath. So she'll get the book out and she'll read it and she can tell you every word of every page because, again, they're at an age where they can learn and memorize. And so we did a book on the fruits of this, or on love is patient, 1 Corinthians 13. So she can quote most of 1 Corinthians 13 because, again, we read the book over and over and she knows it now, which is one of my favorite things to hear her saying. Love is patient, love is kind, it is not envious or boastful.
The first time my kids were able to say the Apostles' Creed was pretty high up for me.
So we've been trying to be a lot more intentional with the books, her bedtime books. We could read a book on going potty, or we can read a book that's going to teach her something. So one of the books we're reading right now, again, from that same ladies devotional they have, is it's called A Little Daily Grace book. It's on the fruits of the Spirit. So we've been kind of reading through this. It just, again, because now our daughter is establishing character habits and traits. And so we want to be teaching her up. And so that's one of the books we've been reading. It's got, the fruit of the Spirit, and then it talks about, it's got some scripture and a little blurb about it. So just reading that through with her at night before we go to bed. And she's got her prayer book, and it's got all these different prayers for different situations. She always wants to read the one about the boo-boo. And so we read the one about the kid who's hurt, and we want to ask God to help him from getting hurt. And so it's just really, it's a really sweet age for her because her prayers, they're growing. We'll say, do you want to pray? And so she'll close her eyes and then she opens them and starts praying about everything she sees around the room. But it's developing because she's got an amazing memory. It's kind of crazy. But she'll be praying for her Oma and her Bahap and somebody if they're sick. She'll pray that they feel better. And it's just, it's a really fun age just for her growth as a 3-year-old. So that's a little bit about what we've been reading. But we're just kind of going to be continuing a lot of this conversation along
no
as, again, pretty intentional with some of the books we're choosing. But we're going to be talking about the topic of parenting and gaming. But before we do that, just a quick reminder, if you haven't done this yet, be a huge blessing to us. One way, if you're not able to support us over on Patreon, is to go over to iTunes and rate and review us. It's just a way to kind of get us in front of more people. It's kind of crazy. We're often talking about how our podcast has grown, and so many people find us in different ways. And one of them is just through searching Christian Gaming Podcast. And so if you want to rate it and review us there, it's always great to see those 5 stars and to put us in front of more people. So just a quick reminder to do that before we jump into our topic of the show. But yeah, what I said was we're going to be talking about parenting and gaming.
I tell you, explaining things to my kids makes me realize how little I know. Recently, my son pointed to an antenna and said, "Look, Daddy, stick." And I said, "Actually, that's an antenna." He goes, "What's an antenna?" "It's a stick." It's a silver stick. You nailed it, buddy.
This is a topic, if you go back all the way to the archives, I think it's episode 60-something. It's in 2016. We did a parenting and gaming episode with the wise one, Eric Bryant. But it's 2021. It's literally been over 5 years. I think it was a February episode when we recorded. So it's been 5 years since we recorded an episode on parenting and gaming, and times are always a-changing. And we've gone through 2020 where everyone's been home for so long. So what I want us to kind of revisit this topic, specifically even with Skinner. Again, he's kind of one of our in regards to me, Logan, and Skinner, he's kind of the OG parent. He's done the fostering. So we come to him for all of our parenting and struggles when it comes to that. This is a counseling session. Honestly, I'm coming to Skinner and saying, "Teach me, wise one," as I step into potentially fostering. And so, and along with a lot of those involved in our Facebook group, I kind of threw out the question in there. So we have a lot of input we're going to be bringing from the Facebook group. So I really appreciate everyone speaking into this. So, but before we really get into the topic and some of the things that I just want to share that we want to talk about. Skinner, why don't you just tell us a little bit about the breakdown of your family, kind of the makeup of it, so that our people can know, okay, in regards to his children, what ages are we looking at as you talk about how you've been parenting them?
Okay, so first thing I'm going to reveal, I'm 42, so I'm starting to get up there, which is a scary, scary thought. I'll be 42 this year.
It flies, man. I'm about to be 35, and I'm like, guys, this is wild.
I don't feel 42.
Gone? That's why gaming is so good for us. It keeps us young.
Exactly. So my wife, she's your age. She's 35. We've been married for about 10 years. Make sure I got that right.
Hey, you did it like me, man. Yeah. We married young. My wife's about 7 years younger than me too.
We have my firstborn, Eben. He will be 9 this year. And my wife picked out their first names for both of them. Eben being the shortened form of Ebenezer, so stone of help. Yes. And then Omri, my daughter, is 7. And Omri was one of the bad kings, but the name means the Lord is my life. Nice. So we hopefully have been intentional about this since their formative ages. In fact, my son being about to be born was the impetus for me finally completing the Bible cover to cover for the first time. I realized that I could not teach him in the way he should go if I didn't even know all the way I should go. So,
that's good.
And then, much like the show, I have a rotating third chair. You mentioned I'm a foster parent.
That's great. Yeah.
Obviously, for reasons of privacy, I can't reveal their names, but first initials will be fine. So my first placement, T, he is now 5, and we still get to see him, which is awesome. One of the things about fostering is it can become a ministry to the whole family, not just to that child. So he was with us for about 2.5 years. Then he went home. Our second, third son, Jay, he left us last November. And no, not last, the November 4 last. And then our current placement, E, she is so cute and beautiful with her ethnic hair. And she has been with us since July, and will probably be going home in April. But Mama has said that she would like us to stay in her life. So,
Amen.
We'll see how that all works out. But,
not always possible, but definitely, again, from a believer's perspective as Christians, I mean, part of the goal is We want to hold the gap. We want to have a ministry to children, but it is so much bigger than that. It is, if possible, if safety and situation allows, a ministry to that family is huge, because they've now got a family that they know loves that kid, who can help with babysitting and all those things. It allows us. And again, I mean, you know this way better than I do. This is the investment that the love you have for these kids. And so
it hurts.
as much as you are able to do those things, where it's like, again, and it's hard because sometimes it just isn't, it's just not possible sometimes. So it's awesome to see just your guys' faithfulness in that.
I don't feel faithful. I feel like I'm doing a disservice sometimes to these kids. It just, because I'm a fallen person.
Yep.
I've got problems myself, and I guess that's the biggest thing, is just because I have problems doesn't mean I still can't be helped.
No doubt.
So.
No doubt. Well, cool. A little breakdown. If you're new to the show and you don't know kind of my family breakdown. So me and my wife, Hannah, we have 2 children. Our oldest is Rin. She was adopted domestically. She is 3 now. I think that may be the first time I've heard your children's name, Skinner, and I love them. We almost named a name I always wanted to name my son was Manasseh, but he was also one of the bad kings. But right. I think about him at the end of Joseph's story, where he named his kids, Manasseh and Ephraim, because the Lord allowed him to forget. And, having gone through some different challenges in my life, God has allowed me not to forget, but, he has healed and reconciled in such a way that I've been able to forget. So we didn't name our son that, but it was definitely one, and we always wanted to call him Manny, and let his name be after Manasseh. And so we have a son also. He's going to be 1 on March 17th. His name is Brock. We named him after the male dormitory that we lived in Cedarville, to honor the 800 guys that lived with us over that time. That, again, they were family, and they helped us in Ren's adoption. And so they loved it when we told them, first of all, that we were having a boy, and then secondly, that we were naming him Brock. They just, it was like it was their, brother or something. They it's a badge of honor for them. So
you got a whole bunch of uncles.
Oh my goodness. He didn't, unfortunately he didn't get to live, because that was once we got to New York, but Ren had, again, she had a whole brood of brothers that were ready to back her up at any point that was necessary. And it was a really special time of our life, but we're not here to talk about that type of parenting that I had to do of college students for 4 years. But let's do this before.
That's a different style.
That's a totally different style, much more stir unto those guys. But before we get into really even talking about, okay, again, how we're going to be approaching this is, okay, how do we have the balance between, as a parent, how do we enjoy the gaming hobby responsibly? So that'll be one avenue that we approach that. The other will be, okay, as a parent with gamer children, potentially, how do we parent them and help teach them to do that responsibly? So we're going to jump to that in just a second. But before we do, let's just talk about gaming memories as a parent, whether that's being currently a parent with our children or as a child playing games with our parents. Do you have any, maybe a memory specifically that you'd like to share with the listeners? Because again, gaming is a great thing if if your children enjoy it and we do it the right way. So we want to definitely honor this hobby that God has given us, and how we can do that appropriately just by sharing some of the memories that have impacted us. So maybe throw out a memory before I share mine and we get some of the listeners.
Well, I want to share 2, and they are both not current, because I'll talk about that later. These are 2 from growing up. One of my first memories I have was playing Mega Man 2, and back then on the Nintendo, we only had the one TV in the house, so everybody was watching me play Mega Man 2, and I'm on Dr. Wily's castle. So we're at the end of Mega Man 2, and it's time for dinner. We pause the game. We go eat as a family. Then we come back, and I finish beating Mega Man 2 for the first time. And everybody's cheering. Yeah, you finally did it. Because it kept failing. But it was one of those things we had to share the TV, which was an interesting thing. The other memory I have is my mom there's 3 games that she loved playing: Wario Woods, Tetris, and Dr. Mario. We would sometimes stay up till 2, 3 in the morning playing Dr. Mario and Tetris as, you know, our theology was not very strong then, so she would cuss at me. And, but in a loving way. Yeah. In a loving way. I mean, but, this is also the 90s. So, late 80s, early 90s. And different times, man, different times. But I will remember that was one of those things that we actually could connect on. Even as I was hitting that phase of I hate life and, parents suck and all of that, that was something that we had together, were those, and just all night gaming sessions. I mean, we played 3, 4 in the morning and just enjoying being together and, playing a game. It was great. So
yeah, I even add so Adina Goforth from the Facebook group, throwing out the question. She has a similar sentiment. She says it was great bonding for my sons and I when they were teenagers. They were, as a middle-aged stay-at-home mom, and teenage boys have nothing in common. But when the boys and I would play, we talked. They weren't as guarded, and conversations seemed easier. And she says 2 of them have moved out now, and every now and then they'll crash at the house for a game or movie night. So again, a lot of what you said, it allows, there at the end you're talking about as a teenager and hating everything and angry at everyone. It was one of those ways that allows us to, again, sometimes the biggest thing, we just need barrier breakers. I've seen that a lot in sports. Guys will open up if they see you play a sport with them. Video games is another one. It's like, as soon as some of our youth or kids find out, oh, you'd like to play video games, all of a sudden there's like walls falling down. So it definitely is a big thing. Some of the memories that I have with my dad, I remember playing the old school Atari really as a young boy. He didn't really play as much as we got older. But really, as a young kid, I remember, watching him play on the Atari, whether that was Pong or Pac-Man or something like that. Cubert was one of those games, really, that I remember as a little kid that my dad would play, and really one of the first games probably that I played on the Atari. And so I remember that. I remember, a funny memory I had when we got our first computer. There was a really basic golf game on it, and so as a kid who kind of started growing up playing video games, our hand-eye coordination with that stuff was just always really good. We just grew up with it. But my dad, he would play with me and my brother, and he'd get so frustrated because he was so bad, because his hand-eye, it was one of those where you click it at the end, and then you click it at the end to try to get it on the line to hit it straight. And he was so bad at it, and he would get so frustrated. And so that's just a fun memory of seeing my dad be so frustrated that he wasn't very good at video games.
Right.
Because he didn't play so much with us when we got older, but that was okay. My dad did plenty of other really great things with us.
Right.
So those are some of kind of our memories. Another one from the Facebook group from Lance Stump. He says, my almost 4-year-old has been playing Mario and Sonic Olympics on the Switch for a year or so. All she wants to do is skateboarding, and it brings her great joy for all the 15 minutes, and then she's done. But this is the point that I really like as he thinks about a memory. He's like, I pray that she'll farm mats and MMOs for me someday, but I don't think she has it in her. And so he's trying to create those memories. He wants her to do the grinding. That's I mean, as a gamer, right? If our kids want to play some games, but if we can get them enjoying the grind, because a lot of times our kids, they don't mind doing they just want to go around and just mess around the game. But if we can find a productive way to do that, like, hey, why don't you go farm souls for me in Demon Souls, or maybe not so much that, but why don't you go do
maybe when they get a little higher,
get some XP for me in another game. Just go maybe in Avengers or something. What a goal that could be. But let's get a little bit more into the topic. But let's talk about, again, this idea of being a parent who likes the game. What are some steps that you've taken maybe as a father to find that proper balance of enjoying your hobby but taking care of your responsibilities as a father? Because that's a big thing that we want to do through our podcast. We talk a lot about, hey, we love gaming. We want to do it to the glory of God. We want to do it responsibly as a husband, as a father, as a good steward of our time. So what are some ways that you've tried to approach that as a father of two, and then with a rotating third chair? How have you been able to find that balance to game, but also do the things that God has entrusted you to do as a man of God?
Well, I mean, honestly, there have been times where I've just had to put it down.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there were some times in there where it would be a month where the only gaming, quote unquote, gaming I did was on the phone, doing what I call stupid apps because, match 3 and, the golf battle and stuff like that.
Castle Crashers.
Yeah.
Somebody just got real mad because they love them some Castle Crashers, or no, it wasn't Castle Crashers. It was
Clash of Clans.
Clash of Clans, yes.
I never got into that one, thankfully. But it's, and I haven't been always good at it either.
Yeah.
Like, there have been times where I honestly let it make me a bad person, where I let the hobby take over and it became an idol for a minute. And thankfully, with the help of my very awesome and patient wife, helped me see where I was letting it be too much. And that's why God put us together in a family, is because we need that help meet, because we're going to be blinded to our own sin every time. But some steps I've taken. One, you have to look at content of the game. A lot of times I would choose my games based on, can I play it while the kids are up? And since they've gotten older and we can now discuss more things, and so some of that has gotten increased. So now I can do more than just play, say, The Witness or Tony Hawk. I can play God of War, and we can talk about, okay, now why was that wrong? Why was what they just said not a good thing coming from a Christian worldview, and try and help it lead us to those discussions. But the key is you can't let it completely overtake everything. It's got to be weighed in with everything else, and there are going to be seasons where you can't play even though you want to. And during those seasons, you can't let that be a thorn in your side. You have to understand that this is for a time, and, the famous quote, "This too shall pass."
Yeah.
It's true in the good and the bad.
Yeah, I think a lot of what, I definitely can relate to a lot of what you're saying. I think for me, as I think about this, the biggest thing for me, and I kind of hinted at it, is, this is something that I enjoy, but I got to make sure I got my house in order before I can do it. God has graciously helped me with that in a lot of different areas of my life. Like, I've never been a big procrastinator. So like when I was in college, I was very much, I am going to get all my homework done as soon as I can, because I don't want to miss, I had FOMO, in college. I didn't want to miss something that the group was doing because I had a homework assignment, because I was at least good enough a student to say, I've got to get this done. So I've always been, get it done, have fun later. So even as a parent and as a husband, I'm very much like, okay, the dishes are done, the house is cleaned, the kids are changed, they're down for a nap, and now I can take advantage of, the scenario. I've got 5 minutes before one of them wakes up. Let me turn on the system just to turn it right back off. I mean, that's really the big thing for me is, okay, this is a hobby that I love, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. But I've got it is always going to come after the fact that I've made sure my children, everything's good there. I've served my wife in whatever ways that she is needed, and now there's an opportunity to do this. And so, as my kids have got older, as they get older, I'm looking forward to get to gaming more with them, and we'll talk about that maybe some here in just a second. But I'm not, the only times I can't do this when my wife's home because she's like, turn it off. But every once in a while, my wife might go out with some friends, and I'm like, all right, Ren, you want to watch a movie? And so I'll give her a little iPad, and she'll watch the movie on her iPad. And Brock's young enough that he's just crawling around playing as I'm playing. So, I do play a little bit when it's just me and the kids, and so I definitely have to be aware of what I'm playing because, they're picking up. I mean, my daughter, I was saying she loves to quote movies. She's picking up things and we have to say, okay, just because the character said that in the movie does not mean that it was nice or okay. And so there's a lot of teaching, but they're aware of these things. And really, I think she doesn't know how to express it yet, but her dreams, they definitely, she'll wake up and she's just sad. And well, why are you sad? And she does. I think it's dreams, but she doesn't realize how to express what those are yet.
Right.
And so I think that, again, the intake that she is witnessing things I just have to be very aware of. So definitely being selective of the type of games I play. And really the biggest thing for me is it's just multiplayer games have taken a hard back seat. As a parent, you gotta be able to quit at any point. And you can do that in online games if you want to, like, okay, if I lose this game, it doesn't matter because I got to go do what I got to do. But in general, I talk with a lot of people about, they'll say, well, they find out I'm doing a podcast. Well, what kind of games do you like? Well, I say, well, I used to play a ton of multiplayer games as a teenager, youth, seminary, but now I play a lot of single player games because I got to be able to quit at any moment to go and take care of whatever I got to do, whether that's someone just started crying, getting up from a nap.
I'm bad about that.
Someone is, diapers needing to be changed again. I got responsibilities I got to take care of. And so again, growing this is if I wasn't doing those things, then my wife has every right to say, you shouldn't be playing that game right now. You have responsibilities that you're not taking care of. And even if I've got all that done, that doesn't mean that she still has to say, and again, not that she lords over me or anything, but again, I want to respect her. If she's asking me not to, I need to try my best to honor that, or at least kind of get understanding of why she doesn't want me to do that at that point. So I'll, if I'm not taking care of my house and keeping it in order, then she has every right to say, you probably shouldn't do that because you haven't done this. You haven't spent time with your kids. You haven't spent time with me. You haven't been investing in these different things. So she has every right to say that. But if I've been doing those things, then it's much more of an open conversation where she wants to serve me by allowing me to do those things because she knows. We often talk about, when it comes to inconveniences, as you think you're growing in sanctification and selfishness, when you get married and you're like, okay, Lord, I'm a very selfish person. You get married, you see how you're more selfish. God works on your heart for a long time. And you're like, man, I must be doing pretty good at this. And then you have kids again. Then you have kids. And you're like, God, I am still so selfish.
Right?
Please help me. Because again, when do I get most frustrated? It's because when Adam has got interrupted in a way that he doesn't like. And that usually comes with an interruption of my schedule. So often, Hannah and I, as we talk about this, I said, there's really one thing that I like. I want to make sure everything's taken care of, but I am building towards, I'm trying to find a moment to play a video game today. Again, if I don't, it's fine, but it's kind of an often conversation. We're talking about hobbies. I'm like, let's just be real what I'm talking about. I really just want to find a moment today, if possible, to play a video game. If it doesn't happen, it is okay. But that's what I'm working towards. So I have to be honest with you. And so when something throws that off, if I'm getting angry, okay, I'm showing some signs of an idol and selfishness. But we've kind of had one of those honest conversations recently where I'm like, that's what I'm really just wanting to get to. If I can find, it's my off day, my off days are Thursday, it's my off day, I know the kids are taking a nap. If I can find an hour during that nap time to play video games, I would love that. And so it's a good conversation for us to have. But it's about the priorities, the content, the example. We've got some different people that have given some good information here. I'll read. We've got some parenting advice from the Woffords. So Jeff and Elizabeth, which is great, kind of getting the combo there. Elizabeth says, first, know that becoming a parent doesn't mean you have to stop gaming. Amen. But instead, you put your kids as a higher priority than gaming. If your kid needs attention, give it to them. But games can be a huge method of teaching. This is a lot of what you were sharing. Involve them, change the type of games you want to accommodate them, guide them through awkward parts. questionable game content and online interactions, to name a few, but mostly show them how it can be a ministry and glorifying to God in all that you do. And then Jeff
Amen.
adds to that, not necessarily to her, but in his own. He says one simple rule: just act, or just like anything with parenting, be involved, play with them, listen to them, monitor them, and use it to disciple them. So just some real good advice there as we talk about some with both of them. Okay, how do we enjoy that, but also how do we use that to parent our children? And then we got one from Wesley. Ray says, my kids aren't old enough yet, so gaming with them isn't really a viable option at this point. However, adjusting the type of games I play around them has been good for some discussion. For example, my 4.5-year-old son has been watching me play Kingdom Hearts because I felt like it was a pretty decently appropriate game for him to see. This led to some very interesting conversations about darkness and light, friendship, and when fighting is appropriate. Some good topics that I can plumb the theological depths of and help him to get more grounded view of the world and the stories that our culture tells. I'll read a little bit more. It says, he and my daughter also enjoy the fact that they get to be with me when I do play games. Again, doing these things with our kids, again, is always, I'm really excited about that next stage, is as they get older. Like Ren being 3, she's not quite interested, but I think, as she gets to 4 or 5, start giving her that controller and getting I'm super excited about that. But he says, just sitting on my lap and making comments about how they are seeing on screen is a good bonding moment. It's no different than memorable moments I had with my dad when we would stay up late watching nightly news and talk shows together. Just a good opportunity to be with him was good. So he then wraps up all of his advice. Again, Wesley giving us a lot of good stuff here. Be flexible, utilize teaching moments, have conversations throughout, and don't expect to platinum all games unless you're Skinner still being a parent. But so yeah, really some just good discussion there. Again, being a parent doesn't mean that, again, all hobbies, we have to view it as a hobby. And as all hobbies, as we grow in life and get married and have kids, different, I loved basketball growing up. It is hard to find a game of basketball at this age, just because you got to have a membership somewhere and everybody's got lives. So really, again, like I was saying, one of my hobbies, television, video games, reading, all these things take work and they take stewardship of your time in general. If you're a poor steward of your time, you may not be able to responsibly be a gamer and be a parent. You're gonna struggle with that if you're not stewarding your time well. But as God works in your heart and works in your life, as you become a better steward of your time, that is both stewarding your family, but also stewarding that time to say, okay, I can do this I got to monitor myself. Like, I can do this for this amount of time so that I'm getting everything else done. Gaming and parenting can not only work together, but they can be God glorifying. And that is the goal that we want to do in all the things that we do, is glorify God in all that we do and all that we say. So, but let's turn that on let's turn that on the other side, Skinner, and talk about, okay, not about our love, but maybe about our children's love of gaming. What are some things that as you have sought to parent your children and shepherd them, as you've tried to talk to them about gaming, what's some advice that you give to parents? Because some of our listeners, maybe, I know Logan talks about this a lot with his parents of his youth and his group of, hey, what are some things you guys need to be aware of? Here's what you need to know about Fortnite. Here's what you need to know about Call of Duty. Kind of brings them into that. We may even have some listeners that check out this episode. What would be some advice that you would give to parents who maybe don't like gaming, or maybe they do, but they're trying to shepherd their children in gaming? What would be some things that you'd want to share with them?
Okay, well, first off would be something that you've mentioned. Help them set time constraints now. Help them learn how to control how much they're doing it now, so that when they get to our age, they're not having to fight that urge like we are. They already have it innate in them that, okay, I do this for a time and then I set it down. I'd also say make sure it's not the sole thing that they're doing. Make sure they're playing outside, stuff like that. But also, okay, so one of the mistakes that I was kind of making at first was I was avoiding anything that had any questionable content, realizing that actually puts us back a little. I'm not saying I need to be playing Grand Theft Auto.
With straight into Grand Theft Auto, because they're gonna learn it somewhere. I might as well be the one teaching them.
Okay, so not that we go there, but that, okay, so we watch a lot of anime in my house. That's kind of the main stuff that we do. They've seen a bunch of Naruto. They've watched Fruits Basket. They've watched some Dr. Stone. Cells at Work.
Speaking in tongues to me. I need an interpreter.
Man, I'm sorry. Oh, dude.
Our listeners are on it, I'm sure, but I'm like, ugh.
Hey, look, you know what? After the show, I'll give you a little bit of a primer. This is good stuff, okay? And not all of it's in just straight Japanese. There's a lot of dubs. But so I realized, and I talked with my wife about it, it's something that you need to both agree on as parents. Like what, but research the game, find out what is in it, find out if it's anything that you can avoid or if it's unavoidable, and really pray about it and know your kids well enough that you can be like, okay, they're ready for us to talk about this. Mm-hmm. Like one of the things that we're kind of having an issue with right now is they're like, oh, well, you just killed him. We were playing Spider-Man. Well, you just killed all those guys. I said, no, I did not kill them. I captured them. There's a difference. Yes, we kill the Draugrs, but that's because they're demon spirits and they need to be destroyed. We'll smite them. But
doing our good biblical work,
That's right. But, and so teaching them the difference between that so that they don't become desensitized to just violence in general. Mm-hmm. But use it as a way to address some topics to where they don't have to be the center of it. Mm-hmm. So, and don't just avoid uncomfortable things like, one of the things we talk about the 10 Commandments in our family. So, thou shalt not commit adultery. They're 7 and 9. How do you explain that? Which for us is they live like they're married, even though they're not. That's, because
simplifying.
Exactly. And, as they get a little older and we have more discussions about things of a more adult nature. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here so we don't get that E. As we move on to that, of course, well, then I will, say, well, this is what they're doing and this is not right. This is why, because there's that whole storyline where in one of the DLCs where Peter thinks he might have had a child with Black Cat, and it's like, okay, how do I discuss this?
Say that one. We'll bookmark that one, kids.
And so what you do is they were living like they were married and they're not dating anymore. So, and then you move on. You don't stay on it.
Age appropriate conversation.
Right. But I think that's a thing that games can open that. The other thing that I'm going to have to fight now is handing them the controller.
But I want to play.
Right. Or like my daughter, she's just interested in the story. She's not interested in the grind. And I'm like, no, we're going to do all the side stuff first. Once it's done, then we'll focus on straight story and finish it. And it'll be awesome because I won't die as much.
She's like, why do you keep clearing all these warehouses? What did these people do to you? Just finish the Spider-Man story already.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Isn't the world about the end? Why are you worried about clearing out these bad guys? They're going to die if we don't save the world.
Yeah, exactly. But teaching them about the grind.
She's worried about your priorities, man. She's like, where are your priorities at right now? The world.
That's it. So, it's that's a lot of what I've done is, and I have a huge love of gaming. I love the stories. I love the gameplay. But it's also helping me because, my wife calls me out when I have my angry outbursts because it didn't do what I thought I told the controller to do. I don't know what it is. I know I did it right. There's no way that the Dear Editor Supreme, Mr. Perfect Gamer, didn't hit that button mistake, combination properly.
Fast enough.
That's it. But anyway, that's a lot of what I've tried to do, bringing them into the hobby.
Yeah.
And I started small. We did Myst first, and so that's just a point and click puzzle solving type thing. And I would try and involve them in that. I would be like, "Well, what do you think we should do here?" And so, like, helping them work through decisions, because there's like 4 or 5 endings you can get in the Myst games, and all of them depend on the decisions you make right there at the end. Whether you solve the puzzle correctly. And we've worked through, I think we've got 1 Myst game left to finish. So we've been working on that one. That one didn't have as much that I had to worry about. But anyway, that's me.
No, that's good. I think a lot of it is, again, we've got to practice what we preach. We can't tell them, hey, don't do these things, or this, we're not going to play this all day, and we're not going to do this. And then we turn around and do that ourselves. Pastor that I work with here at New Hope, he's in our Facebook group. His name's Drew. Drew Langer, and he said this: kids watch what you prioritize. So we parents must be cautious in how much we play in front of them in proportion to the other things we do. Again, our kids are watching us. And so they're saying, they're seeing, okay, is dad reading his Bible? Is dad loving on us? Is dad loving on mom? Is dad doing, chores? They view them as that, but, are we taking care of our responsibilities? Or is dad just abandoning all and us to do the thing that he wants? Because our kids are going to see that, well, dad didn't get what he needed to get done in order to play. So why do I have to do that? You said I got to clean my room before I play, but you guys didn't do the things you need. Again, so just kind of being ready to be that example. Again, I am a big fan of, I'm not going to ask someone, even my children for the most part, to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So that's a big one, is setting that example before our children. And then in regards to as we seek to parent them, I think a big thing for all of us, because there's things that I don't play that eventually my kids might like to play. I may not be interested in that, but, Shay Cutshaw says, ask questions, do research, and then he talks about developing your own convictions. But I think that's really a big one, is we need to know what we and our children are stepping into. What kind of game are they playing? Like you said, you do that research. What themes are in the game? What content is the game? What do I need to be aware of? And then we can really know, is this something that I want my kids to be able to jump into? Because we're going to be held accountable for how we shepherded our children and what we allowed. And I remember as a kid, now some of this was because the house that I was going to, it wasn't, my friend's home life was kind of rough, but I remember sneaking over to his house to play his Nintendo, and we'd play like Ninja Turtles and stuff. But my parents were always just really trying to shepherd me in that. And really, they didn't want me to be playing some of the games, because if I played a fighting game, what did I want to do after? I was ready to throw down. I was practicing my Ninja Turtle moves. I was wanting to, I love the A-Team. I'm trying to build something to get out of a room, like MacGyvering my way out of stuff. And so really be realizing what your child is intaking, how they respond to that. Are they, if they're playing a fighting game, are they being prone? Again, I'm not saying that because of what you play, that's why we have all the violence in the world, but your child may respond in ways that isn't healthy at that point in their life. So maybe it's okay, let's find some other games. Are they responding poorly when you ask them to stop? Are they being disobedient in that? These are things that, again, we grow in parenting. We don't handle them always perfectly. I definitely am not already even a very good parent, but we grow in that and see, okay, are we even responding to our child's poor response appropriately? Or are we adding on to that? And so really just walking with our children, helping them learn what's appropriate, what's not, playing with them. Again, if your child loves gaming, thankfully, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably enjoy it also. So you've already got a foot in the door. But if your kids don't like gaming, or if you don't like gaming and your child does, okay, you got to be finding out, how can I relate with them in this? Because I could, and it doesn't mean you sit by them the whole time they're playing in Fortnite, but you find a way to step into that. Even showing them, because again, one way that you can love your children well is by showing interest in what they're interested in. So I've really seen this with some of the different parents in our church is they'll sit there and like, I'm horrible at Fortnite, but I'm trying to play it with them. I'm horrible at Rocket League, but I'm trying to play it with them. That's a great way to be building those memories and just to be showing your kids that you love them. You may love sports, and so you're hoping your kid becomes an athlete, but if they don't, okay, maybe they like an instrument. Well, you need to learn that instrument and some things about it. Maybe start listening to music to show your kid. That's a way of showing your child you love them. And so even with video games, if you're not a gamer and you're listening to this podcast, one thing you might need to do is find a way to grow and at least somewhat enjoying or being able to sit through what they're doing. Again, you may think it is the biggest waste of time, but your child is enjoying that. And so by totally cutting their legs out, that again, in wisdom, doesn't mean that they have to play, but it's one way that you can really show your children that you love them is by, hey, I'm going to do this with you. And they're like, I thought you hated this. You're going to get maybe some funny looks like, why are you sitting here? You hate this game. I want to just sit here and enjoy it with you and maybe learn. So teach me. Again, it's a conversation. What is it doing? Okay, barriers are coming down, conversations are happening, and who knows what your child might share with you. I think of the Office episode. Are you an Office fan, Skinner? Did you ever get to The Office?
I have not seen but the first episode of it, and it's actually, you're not in the Discord a lot, so you don't know this, but it is actually a running gag because I will use Office meme after Office meme after Office meme, and mostly as a reminder to troll Logan that I've never watched it and will now not watch it simply because they all want me to.
Hey, you don't need to throw shade at me for not being in the Discord. I am very well aware that I am not very active in the Discord. I can barely keep up with the Facebook group, and the Discord was like, it's overwhelming when I'm in there. But anyways, there's a great scene in The Office where Michael is supposed to be going through counseling with Toby, but he hates Toby. And Toby just can't get him to respond. So what do? They start playing Connect 4. And so as they're playing Connect 4, he's just talking, they're just asking, Michael starts opening up about his family and about his parents. But Michael recognizes eventually what's happening. He's like, oh, and I don't remember if he slams it over, but he's like, he gets all mad because he realizes that his walls have come down as they were playing this game. And so again, I think that very much happens with our children, especially as they get older, as they're going to school. Maybe they come home from school and they want to play right away. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe that it's been a hard day. Okay, go in there and sit with them, play, kind of be as they're playing. Tell me about your day. Why you seem frustrated? It's going to allow them to open up some really great opportunities, I think, there as we seek to parent our kids, as we seek to shepherd them to be involved in their lives. Just blowing it off as a wasted hobby. Again, our kids see that. My parents think I'm wasting my time. You may feel that, but it may not be best to tell your child that because they're going to be, again, you're going to be building up potentially some resentment, some feelings there.
Animosity there.
Yeah, animosity. Well, my parents think I'm just a waste of time. Wow, you may not be saying that, but that may be what they're hearing. So finding a way to relate to them. But let me read a couple things from the Facebook group, some comments. Our dear leader, Logan, says, teach them valuable life lessons by never letting them win. I don't know if that's exactly what we're going for, Logan, but maybe. You try that one out.
Hey, that's the classic. That's the classic childless adult trying to tell the parents how to parent.
I know Logan's messing around, but hey, perseverance. You're going to teach your kid to get good. You're going to teach them. Okay, I remember the first time I could beat my dad in basketball. I remember the first time I could beat my brother in something. There's a long time they didn't let me win, but by persevering and getting to that point, it's good. But no,
I'm not holding back. I did let them play some Tony Hawk, and I schooled them every time. I mean, they've got to get good. So
yeah. Jason David, I don't know how you say his last name. Licht. He said, "Don't expect them to play the same way you do. My 9-year-old daughter lives the goof in World of Warcraft by killing critters, sleeping in benches, and swimming in water. This kind of makes me crazy." Because I've become so goal oriented. Okay, welcome to parenting. If you're not getting somewhere in a game, why am I playing it?
Right.
He's like, get that quest done, get that gear level up. So again, not having the same expectations of your children, because I can get that. like with my nephew, he always wanted to just play random games. I'm like, why don't you play this game where it's actually good? You have a goal. And he's like, I just want to go around in Breath of the Wild and hunt animals. I'm like, what in the world? But allowing them to play the game that they want to play is definitely, I think, some good advice there. Jesse Houston says, my parents always said, if it makes you angry, you can't play it. It always made us deal with our emotions better because we always wanted to keep playing. We had to remember if it was just that it's just a game and losing should not make us sore losers. It also taught us that it's okay to put down the game if it's affecting your spiritual life negatively. So again, those are good things to be talking about as a parent of, if you see your kid saying things, again, welcome to the internet. If they're saying things that they shouldn't be saying while they're playing with their friends, conversation, it's got to be had. Hey, these things are not appropriate. I don't mind you playing, but if it's causing you to talk this way, we're going to have to lose this privilege. And then not only the things that they say, but their reactions. Are they getting angry? Are they throwing their controller? Hey, I want to allow you to be able to play these games, but if it is causing you to respond in anger, this is not biblical. It's not helpful. And so we just got to have a conversation, because again, we want to allow you to do these things, but we want you to be able to do it the right way. So some opportunities for conversations there, and discipling. Again, that's what Jeff was saying earlier. This is about discipling our children.
I have a kind of a similar thing. It wasn't necessarily gaming I had to give up, but I can't watch Saints games live. Even the games where they were blowing out other teams, it was negatively affecting me physically. I would actually have a panic attack watching the game, even if they were doing fine, like even if they were doing good. I literally cannot watch a live Saints game anymore. I can get highlights,
especially because they stink.
Well, you take that back, sir. We're better than the Cowboys
who can't sign our quarterback. I mean,
and then we let our punter go, like the best punter in the league, and we let him go this week. What? Anyway, well, we could have a whole different podcast on that one. But that was one of those things. That is an important thing to understand, that you may have to put a game down if it's causing you to sin. Whether that's because anxiety can become a sin if we just focus on the worry, and we don't remind ourselves that we rest in the hands of the Father. That was just something I can relate to, that sentiment, because it was a tough decision. I mean, I was born in the city. I was born down there. So, I mean,
I was born saying who dat. I didn't cry. I just said who dat, who dat, who dat, who dat, who dat.
Exactly. So it was really tough making that decision. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. We've been good the last 3 or 4 years. So it's not like
it's been real good for your sanctification.
Yeah, no doubt.
Or not.
But yeah, I mean, that was something that I had to put down because, I can talk about a game I had to put down. I tried to play, this was a while back, well before my further sanctification, before I got reformed, Dante's Inferno. Just all the nudity in that. It was horrible. And not even for any good reason, just to be there. It felt like it didn't help the story. I felt, I had to put that down. Like, this is not a game that I can play. And that's before I got good at my spiritual walk. I'm still not good at it. I'm mediocre at best. But anyway,
no, that's all good stuff. Again, we talk about video games, but we talk about how these, a lot of these truths apply to a lot of areas of life. And, as gamers, one of the favorite things that we love to, when people start giving video games a hard time, what do we like to run to? We like to give them, hey, sports is the same thing. And I'm a sports guy. You just sit around and watch sports all the time. What's the difference between video games? We love to do that as gamers. And so, but it's true. So a lot of the principles definitely, apply to that. Just a couple more feedback.
It's all hobbies.
Exactly. It's exactly right. These are good gifts of the Lord that we get to steward well. Sally O'Brien says boundaries and limits, always showing your children that we have to abide by them as to not make our love and passion for gaming to be an idol. Again, just a lot of really good input. And then lastly from Shay Cutshaw, Again, he already shared some with ask questions, do research, and develop convictions. Don't do it alone, though. Invite your child into this and allow them to help frame the discussion and figure out those boundaries. Again, the more that you can. Again, we're still the parent, so you got to be the parent. You don't let your kids set the table. You don't let them call the shots. But again, what does it say to them when you allow them into that conversation and into that discussion of at least the why? We can always tell our kids, hey, do this because I said so. Okay, they may listen until they get out of your house, but you establish that why. Well, why is this important? What is the principle behind this? What is the biblical conviction behind this? The more that they can grasp that, the better they will carry that when they're not in your house anymore, when they're not in your home. So definitely some good discussion. Thank you to everyone in the Facebook group that gave us your input, your advice. I'm taking notes over here. I'm learning from you guys. I got the little ones, but definitely appreciate all of the discussion in our Facebook group just around this topic. And again, we want to do these things well: gaming, parenting together. But again, all these things fall into, these are privileges that the Lord has given us. And so as we grow in these, as we steward them well, God is only going to continue to help us be able to do these things appropriately. And if you're not able, okay, maybe God might be, again, I'm not one to say you got to give up gaming, but God may be, if you're not able to balance these things, it might be just a choice that you have to it's a liberty. You can willingly give that up. You don't have to choose it. You can choose to give that up if it's causing you to not parent or spouse well. Or again, this applies to any of our hobbies. You may be saying, I can manage my gaming hobby well, but again, like Skinner was just saying, maybe sports is one of those triggers for you. Maybe it's something else that you've idolized. I know some people with guns, they love to go shooting. They love
hunting.
These things consuming. Yeah. Hunting. Okay. All these things fall under the authority of God. And how am I shepherding my family well in this hobby? So hopefully we've given you some great principles to go along with whatever hobby that you really love. But let's transition here to finish up the show. Before we get into our Recos, last episode on our episode on gametography, we encouraged everyone to go over on Twitter, tag Micah, tag the TRG Twitter account, and we're going to be doing a contest for the best gametography photo. And so Micah has looked, he has chosen that the Reformed Jedi. He has a really nice picture here of Ghost of Tsushima. We've got some nice water in the background. The horse is there. He's meditating in the background. It's a really awesome shot. I'm sure by the time this episode is even live, Logan is going to be sharing that on our Twitter page. But congratulations to the Reformed Jedi. Well done on your gametography photo. Thank you to everyone who submitted a photo. Some really awesome shots, and Micah for choosing that winner. So be looking out, Reformed Jedi, for all of your ways that Logan might be reaching out to you to get you your prize. But before we finish the show, let's finish up with some recos.
If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up,
as we like to do at the end of each show. So Skinner, it's been a while. You got some recos for us. Why don't you share a little bit of some things that you'd suggest to the dear listeners?
Okay, so in the vein of not doing nothing, not only doing video games, because it's a great hobby, but you need to be more balanced in your life. I would suggest, if you have children, see if you can find a Trail Life or AHG, which is American Heritage Girls, troop in your area. These groups are character building for children. I think legally I'm not allowed to say the names of the organizations that these have replaced for Christian conviction, but it's not just about camping. Everything is about giving glory to God. It is both groups are very focused on being godly in what they do and being biblically based. So see if you can find a troop in your area. It's a great way to get kids involved in the outdoors, service in the community, and things of that nature. So that's kind of my big thing. Also, family worship. If you're not doing it, because Adam, you mentioned family worship earlier in the show. If you're not doing it, it's not really hard to do. Our generation was taught, well, no, you don't indoctrinate your children. That's wrong. No, the Bible tells us specifically, teach your child in the way he should go. And when he is grown, he will not depart from it. It's not indoctrination. It's teaching them in the way they should go. If we don't give our faith to our children, they're going to depart from it. And one of the ways that you can show that God is first in your life is nightly family worship. This is an important thing. There are a whole ton of resources out there that you can find for family worship. Right now, we're using Tim Keller's The Songs of Christ, which is kind of a devotional book, but it works through the entire book of the Psalms. And it'll have a short devotional thing. And then as you're starting out, you can just do that and let that be enough. You gotta try and work things around for the age of your children, but they actually can understand a lot more than we give them credit for. And if you think it's a tough thing, ask them if they understand. And if they don't, guess what? You've just enlarged. You're now expositing what it means and helping to grow them. So it's been really important. The biggest shocker for me was when my 5-year-old and at the time 3-year-old, they were able to memorize the Apostles' Creed. They were able to memorize the Lord's Prayer. They're able to memorize a lot of this stuff that we don't. Like you said, your daughter, she just memorizes this stuff. And so if we can teach them the basis of the faith and then lead them back to the Bible and show them why we believe what we believe, when they hit college or whatever. Well, my kids are homeschooled, so we don't have as much of the school issue. But when they hit those times where they interact with the world and the world's like, well, that's just wrong because this, they'll have an answer for their faith. And if I can do nothing else as a father, as a parent, is to give them a strong foundation in God so that when they go out into the world, they are not shaken. And then lastly, again, every episode I reco this, get into foster and adoption. Fostering is an important ministry. As Christians, we are called to care for the orphan, the widow, the sick, and fostering is a way you can provide a safe home for a child temporarily. Adoption is a way you can provide a good home for a child permanently. Both of those are very biblical. They serve the Lord, and they're important things. And there's always a shortage of foster parents, especially in these days where in some states you have to do some weird stuff and agree to some weird stuff to foster. Well, one of the ways that we've kind of gotten around that, because that's even reached down here in Louisiana. There's a push down here to affirm things that we can't affirm. So our family personally, and also for the safety of our children, we've stuck to babies and toddlers. And, we tell them that going in, they understand that. And so we might not get some placements, but you have to take a lot of things into account. Like, all right, my children, when we started this, were 5 and 3.
Yeah.
Well, they're not old enough, big enough, strong enough to defend themselves from a, 10, 12-year-old who is going to have issues because the system has gotten involved.
Yeah.
Situation.
Yeah, you're definitely talking to, again, we could that's our whole other topic, Skinner, me and you, man.
Yeah.
Again, I know Logan has a heart for that also, as we did in our adoption episode a couple years back now, but definitely I didn't mean to cut you off there, but definitely some good stuff that we can be
I probably could have just kept going.
It's good. I mean, again, it's a topic that is close to both of our hearts because, again, who better than the church to step in and love children, vulnerable children who are hurting and grieving and have trauma. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's actually going to be really hard. But again, with God's help, we're able to do things that we never thought we could do. So definitely an encouragement for us. Quick reco again. This one talking about parenting and all the things. So I'm going to recommend one of our favorite kids books as a family. It's by Trillia, Newbill. It's called God's Very Good Idea. Just a great children's book there. You can check it out. I mean, we've got I've been saying we're doing this episode in our playroom, so we've got all kinds of books over here that I could pick from. But that's one of our favorite as a family, so you guys can go check that out if you got little ones. But thanks for listening to this episode of The Reformed Gamers. Just a couple things that you can do to support us. You can check out our merch store over on the website. You can find that. You can support us over on Patreon if you want to throw $1 our way or a couple dollars. Never going to tell you no. But if you're not able to, again, we appreciate you downloading and listening to us. Interact with us on Twitch, on Twitter, like us on Facebook, find the website, all the different ways that you can engage with us. As you can see, this episode was really made better. YouTube. This episode was made better because you guys interacted with us in many ways. So thanks for checking us out, getting involved, and we can't wait to have another episode. So you guys have a good one. As Logan likes to say, be a deer and keep it locked in here. See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Reformed Gamers, the podcast all about theology and gaming. TRG is edited by Dear Ear Productions, so thank them for the buttery smooth tones in your ear. If you're looking for extra content, head on over to youtube.com/thereformedgamers. The Reformed Gamers is entirely fan-supported over on patreon.com/theformedgamers by our dear patrons. The following deer are at the producer level or higher and will forever be thanked at the end of each show, as long as their pledge comes through, or we forget to update the audio. Those people are Mr. Butts, Caleb, Alex Castellanos, Pastor Shay, and Wesley Ray. Thank you for your support on patreon.com, keeping our controllers charged, and supporting Logan in his never-ending quest to collect them all. Platinum trophies, that is. So be a deer and keep it locked here. Keep listening. We'll catch you later.